Hey guys, it's Caitlin and I'm back again with another book haul. Yay. I know that like half of the videos that I upload on this channel are book hauls, but since I haven't filmed anything in a really long time, I have bought a lot of books. I think I've got maybe 43 books to show you guys today, and they're not even all the books that I've bought this year, of course. They're just the most recent ones, probably about 20 of them being today. So yeah, let's get into it. So I'm going to start off with books that I bought from bookstores or books that were given to me by friends, because surprisingly that's actually the smallest pile on this bed. If you want to know what I mean by that, I kind of have my books stacked on my bed, because if they're on my shelf then I'm really going to forget what books I have to show you. So the first book is 13 Reasons Why by J. Asher. This book was actually given to me by a really good friend of mine who doesn't really like reading so much. So I doubt there's anyone out there who doesn't really know what 13 Reasons Why is about, since it was since it was actually made into a Netflix original TV series. But if you don't, I'll just give a basic little summary, and I'm so sorry because my summaries are terrible. Basically, there's this boy named Clay Jensen, and he comes home to find this strange box that's been delivered to him, and inside there are 13 tapes. And on those tapes, it's 13 reasons why Hannah Baker has committed suicide, and each tape is designated to one person. So she's got 13 reasons why, 13 people. Yeah, so each chapter is just kind of Hannah's tapes and Clay's reactions to those tapes, and it's a very interesting read. So the second book that I have is The Sidekicks by Will Kostakis. I haven't actually read this book yet, but I really want to because it sounds so interesting. So basically what it is there are three friends, Ryan, Harley, and Miles, and the only thing that they have in common is their friend Isaac. Now Isaac was like the center of attention in their group, and they were considered his sidekicks. And now that Isaac is gone, what does that make them? So it actually sounds incredibly interesting, and I really want to give it a go soon, so I'll probably be uploading a book talk on this sometime soon. So the next three books that I have are part of a series, and that's The Selection by Kira Cass. So we've got book 1 being The Selection, book 2 being The Elite, and book 3 being The One. Now I have read these three books. I started reading them when I was in Fiji 2 weeks ago thereabouts, and I finished reading them when I got back. I'm not going to say that I loved them because they're not my favorite series in the world, but it was a series that I definitely couldn't put down. So what The Selection is about is there is a prince out there. His name is Prince Maxon, and what happens in the royal family is that if they have a daughter, she's sold off to another country kind of to make connections, I guess. And for the prince, what they do is they hold a selection. So girls aged between 16 and 20, I believe, a form is sent out to their homes, and they fill it out if they would like to be part of the selection. And from then on, I believe they choose 35 girls out of everyone who applies to come live in the palace, and then he does narrow it down to the top 10, which are the elite, and then eventually he will choose the one. So we've got a bit of a theme going on here. So the next book that I have is Kisses and Curses, and this is actually a collection of short stories from various authors. They're not quite individual short stories though. Generally they revolve around a series that's already been published. The main reason that I bought this book is because I was reading Enclave by Anne Aguirre, and there was a short story in here that took place in Fade's point of view, and I really wanted it and I couldn't find it anywhere else online. Like there wasn't an ebook or anything. So I started reading this one and was very disappointed to find out that this point of view only lasts for about 8 pages out of this whole thing. Probably wouldn't recommend buying the whole novel if you just want to read the short story. Maybe try and find it. I think there's maybe 1 or 2 websites out there, and I think there's a link on Goodreads as well if you want to pick it up. Speaking of Enclave, 2 of the next books in this haul are from that series. We've got book 3, which is Horde, and then book 4, which is Vanguard. These books are both by Anne Aguirre, and I must say it's a really like unique kind of story that she's written here, and it was so interesting. And there were certain times where I was so frustrated with the main character, but you know, she grew up underground. It's understandable that she doesn't really understand boy signals. Book 4 is not actually told from the main character's perspective. It's told from the perspective of her best friend, so you probably don't have to read this as part of the series, but I think I actually enjoyed it maybe a little bit more than the the series itself. So the next two books are two more books from their own little series, and that is Everland and Umberland by Wendy Spinall. This is kind of a Peter Pan retelling, and then this one is a bit of an Alice in Wonderland retelling, but at the same time they're linked, so it's actually really fun to read. So Everland, basically this massive virus was leaked all over London and presumably the rest of the world, and it affected everyone, mainly adults first, except for children, and somehow all the girls managed to die off as well, leaving just the Lost Boys, with Peter Pan being one of the main guy characters. Of course, the main girl character in this book, her name has to be something along the lines of Wendy, and it is Gwen. So it's very interesting to see everything that goes on in this story. And then this one, like I said, is mainly an Alice in Wonderland retelling. So Pete and Gwen are still part of this story, and it is a continuation because it leads on, you know, book 1, book 2 kind of thing. But either way, there are more characters introduced in this novel, one of them being Alyssa, who is a bit of an Alice in Wonderland kind of character, and Maddox, who I guess is a bit of a substitute for the Mad Hatter. So these next two books are the last two that I've actually bought myself recently this year from a proper bookstore, and that is Stalking Jack the Ripper, and I'm holding it really awkwardly, Hunting Prince Dracula by Kerri Maniscalco. Now, I saw this one first in Dimmicks in the beginning of the year, and as soon as I saw it, I was just, I'm in love with the cover already. Turn it over, and it just says, "He murdered women in cold blood. He terrorized an entire city. He taunted those of us who hunted him down. But despite all these horrors, in the end, I could not deny it. I was the girl who loved Jack the Ripper." And just that summary alone was enough to get me to pick it up and just be so invested in it. And I must say, it is an amazing, amazing, amazing story. And it's just like, words do not describe how much I actually love this series. So please go pick these up. I just, like, any kind of reader, you will love these. Like, I'm not even kidding. Alrighty, so next we'll move on to some books that I got from the library, because as you guys probably know from my last book hauls, I do actually pick up quite a few books from there. So the first one that we've got is Breathe Annie Breathe by Miranda Keneally. I know that she has written quite a few contemporary novels, and I've heard of them quite a lot, and I do want to read them as well. And this was one that I actually hadn't heard of before. So basically what I can get from the blurb is that it's about this girl named Annie. You can kind of get that from the title, I think. And she hates running, but she is going to run a marathon that her dead ex-boyfriend would have run if she hadn't broken up with him. So I'm getting the kind of feeling that she blames herself for his death, and it is going to be one of those. But while training for that marathon, she does meet another boy named Jeremiah, and they kind of hit it off, I'm guessing. So it just sounds like a really cutesy kind of contemporary novel that I am looking forward to getting to in the near future. The next book actually isn't one that I've heard about a lot. It's called My Name is Rapunzel by K.C. Hilton. So I actually found this book when I was going through the giveaways on Goodreads, and it just sounded really interesting. So basically all the blurb says on it is that you've heard the fairy tales, you've heard all the stories, but none of them are true, and if they were, you couldn't read them to your children. So she just says, "My name is Rapunzel, I will tell you my story, and I will tell you the truth." And I know that even still this is just another retelling of Rapunzel, but it just sounded so inviting and everything, so I could not help but pick it up when I saw that the library was giving it away. So the last book that I picked up from the library is Winger by Andrew Smith, and I actually did manage to get the stickers and everything off of it, so now it is just a regular hardcover novel, which I'm very happy about. Now, for this one, I cannot tell you what it's about, because even reading the blurb, it's not really giving me much of an idea as to what the story itself will entail. I only know really about this book because Jessie over at Jessie the Reader has just been raving about this book like for ages and everything. So as soon as I saw that they were going to give this away, I thought I might give it a bit of a go. Okay, so the next massive amount of books are going to be coming from both the Salvation Army and Vinnie's. So both of these op shops are my best friends when it comes to looking for new books. Okay, so quite a few of these books I won't actually be able to give a description just because they're not the first book in the series, and if they are, I also don't really know a lot about the series just yet because I haven't actually picked up the first one. So please excuse the lack of summaries in the second half of this video. So the first book that I picked up from the Salvos was The Star-Touched Queen by Roshani Chokshi. I'm so sorry, I'm really bad with names. I believe that this is book 3 in this series or trilogy. I don't know, but all I know is that I really want to pick up this series because it sounds amazing from what I've heard. Next, I have The Return of Sherlock Holmes by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. I just picked this up because I've never actually read anything. Ooh, okay. Back we go. What is this? A little snippet from Reader's Digest on here. So as I was saying, I've never really read anything on Sherlock Holmes. I've never seen any of the movies or the TV shows that have come out. It's just never really been part of my world, but everyone does rave about it. My best friend is a big fan of it, so maybe this will give me some incentive to start reading. The next 3 books are from the same series, and they are the first 3 books in the Maze Runner series by James Dashner. So we've got book 1 being the Maze Runner, book 2 being the Scorch Trials, and then book 3 being the Death Cure. Now, I have seen the movies for both of these first 2 books, and I have read the first one. Granted, I read it a couple of years ago, so I don't really remember everything that happens in the book. So if you don't know what the Maze Runner is, the main character in this book, his name is Thomas, and he gets sent up into the glade through a lift, not remembering anything about his life before the moment when those lift doors open. So what the glade is, it's at the center of this massive maze, and they are really weird creatures out there who like to kill everyone, so that's fine. So stay inside and you'll be fine, until one night when the doors do not close to the maze and all hell breaks loose. So none of the boys know why they're there, they don't know anything about their life beforehand. A couple of days into their life in the glade, they get their names returned to them. Pick it up, it's pretty good. I know that there are a lot of people who believe it's either a you love it or you hate it kind of thing. Personally, I loved it, but I know that a lot of people didn't, so it's a 50-50 chance, I guess. Next, we have I Tell You I Love You, But Then I'd Have to Kill You by Ali Carter. This is the first book in the Gallagher Girls series. I believe there are maybe like 6 or 8 books in this series. Please don't kill me because I don't actually know. So basically what this is about, you've got the Gallagher Academy for Exceptional Young Women, where basically it's just a spy school. They get taught so many different languages and how to be badasses, and it's just a kick-ass school. So the main character in this book is Cami Morgan, and she thinks she can do everything until she starts to develop feelings for a boy who is outside of the Gallagher Academy. Normal teenage girl things kind of seem a little bit tricky compared to being fluent in 14 different languages, you know? Okay, the next few books I actually know absolutely nothing about, because if you have watched any of my past videos, you know that I like to go into books knowing nearly nothing about them. So the first book that we have is We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. I have heard about this book a lot on BookTube, and surprisingly, I still know absolutely nothing that happens in it. Next, we have Fire by Kristen Cashore. All I know about this book is that it is book 2 in the Graceling trilogy. That's all I can tell you. I'm sorry, I don't know anything else about it. Next, we have Through the Evernight by Veronica Rossi. I think this is book 2. I know the third one is Into the Still Blue, and then Under the Never Sky is the first one. Once again, I know nothing. I'm sorry. I'm really bad at this. The next book is Illusions by April Lynn Pike. And I think that this is book 4 in a series that I don't know what it's called. I know book 1 is Wings, and that's about it. The next book is A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. Once again, I know nothing about this. I always thought it was a bit of a children's book until my friend read it and told me that it is really not for children. And that's all I know about this one. The next book, however, I do know something, maybe, probably not. It's Hush Hush by Becca Fitzpatrick. I have read this series before, but I read it in year 8, which was 4 years ago, so I actually don't really remember anything. I remember that his name is Patch, and that's about it. Couldn't even remember the main character's name until I just looked at the back of it and found out that it was Nora. And next we have all of the books that I've just bought today. So we've got 17 books were bought today alone. But from the salvos, I only spent maybe about $60 on those books, when normally $60 could probably only get me 4, so I'm pretty happy with that. The first 4 books are all part of a series, and that's by Claudia Gray. I don't actually know if these are in the right order or not, but even so, we've got Stargazer, Hourglass, Evernight, and then we have the last one, which is Afterlife. I know that I am missing a book in here. There's just 1 book missing, I believe, and I've also got absolutely no idea what they're about, and what's stressing me out the most is that I have no room on my bookshelf for these next books. The next book that I have is Looking for Ali Brandy by Melina Marchetta. This has always been a book that I kind of strayed from. I don't know why, but every time I think about it, I'm just kind of like, I don't want to read that at all. And I really don't know why I have that feeling about it, but I do. But one of my best friends is absolutely in love with Melina Marchetta's work, so when I saw it at the Salvos, I thought I might as well give it a go, and we'll see how I feel about it from there. The next two books are part of a series, a book that I actually almost just talked about, Hush Hush by Becca Fitzpatrick. We've got book 2, which is Crescendo, and then book 3, which is Silence. The only one that I'm missing is book 4, which is called Finale. Next, we have Me Before You by Jojo Moyes. I watched the movie before I read this book. I have still yet to read it, and I feel like I've probably actually ruined it for myself, because personally I like to read the book before I watch the movie, just because every time I've watched the movie first, I already have an idea in my head about what's going to happen and what the characters look like, so I can't really construct it for myself, and that actually makes me like the movie more than I like the book. For those of you who don't know what Me Before You is about, it is about this girl named Louisa Clark, and she is losing her job and needs to find another one, and the job that she does find is looking after Will Traynor, who was in an accident and now is in a wheelchair and unable really to do anything for himself. It's just, it's an emotional wreck. It leaves you an emotional wreck, but I love it all the same. Next, we have The Ruby Circle by Rochelle Mead. If you don't know what the Bloodline series is about, it takes place after Vampire Academy, but instead of being told by Rose and Dimitri, Bloodlines is told by Sydney and even sometimes Adrian. It's amazing. Sometimes I actually like it better than Vampire Academy itself, but Vampire Academy is still my baby, so it remains at the top of that one. Next, I have The Bronze Horseman by Paulina Simmons. Don't know anything about this book except that everyone who read it loved it, and it also made them cry a shit ton. Now, my battery is going to die really soon, so I am just going to rush through these last ones. We've got Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn, and this really cool copy of Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, and I really hated this book. But, you know, I read it when I was 16, so maybe I'll like it if I read it in a couple of years' time. And lastly, I found someone who apparently didn't like Rick Riordan, but I love him, so I bought several of his books from the Salvation Army. We have The Serpent's Shadow, which is book 3 in the Kane Chronicles. And then we do have 4, yes, we've got 4 out of 5 books in the, I think this is the Heroes of Olympus series. So I do have book 1, which is The Lost Hero in hardcover, and this cool like UK copy, which is amazing. I've got book 2, which is The Son of Neptune, book 3, which is The Mark of Athena, and then book 5, which is The Blood of Olympus. The only one that I'm missing is book 4, and I've already forgotten the title, but I know that it has something to do with Hades. So I'm sorry that that last part was a bit rushed, but my battery light has actually been blinking at me for like the past couple of minutes, and I'm really hoping it doesn't die before I get to do this outro. But anyway, if you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you want to, just hit that button down below. All my links, as well as the links for all of the books that I just talked about, will be in the down box down below as well if you want to go read a bit more about them and pick them up for yourselves. I'm Caitlin. Again, I don't know what to say in this outro, and I'm actually out of breath right now. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you next time, guys. There is absolutely no way in hell that I can pick up all of these books to do a thumbnail, because I will just die.